Hey, aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron with you, and welcome to potentially a racy video. This video is part of a series, though it stands on its own, and I am so delighted to be thanking and honoring many of my coaches, teachers, mentors today. A dude by the name of Veeresh, though it also connects really to one of his teachers, his guru, Sri Bhagwan Rajneesh, who some called the sex guru. I remember my friend Ketan, who first told me about Humaniversity, the ashram center from Veeresh in Holland. And Ketan was talking about his time in India at the Osho ashram. And people would say to him, I hear that you have free sex there. And he would say in response, well, do you normally pay for it? Right. And it's such a funny one. Like this topic is so charged, man. Sex and money, right? We've got so much. Typically, we humans have a lot of stuff locked up around sex. So I'll say this stuff, and part of what I'll share with you today, some of the experiences I had there, may seem weird, may seem out there, and it all depends on what you want, what your goals are. And when I went to Humaniversity, right, it's a center, a ashram, a university, an addiction recovery place in Holland. I went there because I was obsessed with personal and spiritual development. Now, ironically enough, at this point in my life, I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought I was just super cool. Like I'd experienced all kind of things. I'd lived at Omega Institute. I'd been at Esalen Institute. I'd studied transpersonal psychology. I had studied Gestalt therapy. I'd done all kinds of radical, weird, cool things. I thought I was very evolved. And in my 1 hour intake interview at Humaniversity, I was like, ooh, gosh, somehow my confidence eroded by some of the questions they asked me. And I realized like, there's some things to look at that I didn't realize. But let's get right into it. Therapeutic pleasure sessions, that's how it was first described to me. Like, okay. But I didn't really know what that meant or what was going to happen. We go into a room, we, meaning the people that I was in the family with, the tourist program. There were, I don't know, maybe 10 of us at the time on a 2-week intensive program. Some were actively in the addiction recovery program, so they were there longer. But we were the ones that were like full time in process therapy. I don't know what you would call it. That's all we were doing. Some of the others, they had jobs there and they would come in and out of therapeutic processes. So there were about 10 of us. We went in, and I think the first time I did one of these sessions, it was on a weekend. So there were a bunch of people that were part of a program for the weekend. So maybe there's 40 of us, right? And the part of the way Humaniversity always worked is we didn't know what we were going to do. Right. We didn't know moment to moment. Like now it's time for, now you are to go to, and that was part of the process. And it was beautiful and it was challenging and it was beautiful and it was uncomfortable and it was beautiful. And so we got to one of these processes and they said, okay, everybody in the group room. We get there and, we don't know. And that was part of the excitement and fear because so many of the processes we did there were really challenging. I mean, like deeply provocative, confrontative, hard, like really deep stuff. I felt scared a lot of the time there. I remember when I was in the tourist program, like every time they woke us up in the morning, I was just like, I just wanted to hide in my bed because I knew most days the first thing we did was a active meditation, and not just like you might do at the local center or something. Active meditations were jumping up and down, sometimes usually some kind of screaming, some kind of like intense stuff. And I was just like, So we get in the room, we don't know why, and they say, okay, we're going to do, and I don't remember the specific name of the process, but it was in the category of therapeutic pleasure sessions. Now, from the outside and from the perspective of the person that would say, oh, I hear you do free sex there, right? Therapeutic pleasure session would sound like an orgy. And if you were looking from the outside, it might look like an orgy, right? I don't actually even know what the definition of an orgy is. Let's be clear though. Therapeutic in the title is there for a reason. So is process. So here's one example. There were many variations, but this is one example of what we did. And the first one that I was part of was like this. They said, okay, everybody stand on the outside of the mattress. It was basically a cushioned pad that was the center. And that's where we did most of the work, or all of the work. And which was cleaned often, by the way, intensely. They said, okay, everybody stand on the outside of it. And now here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you instructions step by step by step. You can take all of those instructions. You can take this instruction and then stop and not do the following instruction. In other words, you go as far as you want to go. Now, a friend of mine who I offered to give some support to recently in a coaching situation, great response. He said to me, how deep are we going to go? Like, that's an interesting response. Like, how deep do you want to go? In any case, that was kind of the thing here. It's like, you can go as deep with this as you want. You can go as far as you are comfortable. However, there was a clear encouragement to go beyond what you were comfortable with, not so far that you completely freak out, right? And it was like therapeutic pleasure session, pleasure, comfort, pleasure, challenge, growth. All of these were mixed in. So the first instruction was take off your clothes. Now, I remember the very first time I took off my clothes in public, nude beach on Martha's Vineyard. It was hard. Oh, I should rephrase that. It was challenging to take off my clothes. And it was challenging in some way because I was afraid it would be hard and that could be embarrassing. It was challenging because I had less than pride. I had discomfort. I had embarrassment about my body. Yet, I knew it was possible. And I knew there would be some benefit. And if I encountered that discomfort in myself, that fear, there would be benefit. So back to Humaniversity in Holland around the mattress, take off your clothes. I'm like, all right, I've done this a lot of times. I can do this part. So I took off all my clothes, and so again, we're like 40 people. A couple people were not comfortable with taking off their clothes. So maybe they took off some. They went as far as was appropriate for them. Next instruction was move on to the mattress, right? Some people said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay out here, right? The next level of instruction was come closer into the center and move on to the floor. And I don't remember the exact set of instructions, but it went from there to you can touch people with permission, right? With agreement is a better way of saying it. And if you are enjoying, both of you, the sexual interaction or sensual interaction, and you would like to progress it, you can, right? And there was a rule, which is if you're going to have intercourse, penetrative intercourse, that's redundant, I think, you must raise your hand and ask for a condom. And some people did that. Now, how comfortable are you? I was not comfortable really at any point in that process. And that was part of the point. That was part of the process, was to challenge my discomfort, right? And to see, somebody that I'm attracted to being sexual with somebody else. Ooh, another time, somebody I'm actually in relationship with being sexual with somebody else. That's a whole nother topic for another video. Seeing people around being sexual, somebody making sexual advances toward me that I did or didn't want, me making sexual advances towards somebody and them liking it or not liking it. Steve, thanks for chiming in. Not comfortable listening to me. I hear you. As you can see, there's some level for me where it's challenging and uncomfortable even to talk about it. However, there's great value in discomfort. And Steve, since you chimed in, one of my declarations, and for y'all that don't know what a declaration is, it's kind of like an affirmation, kind of like an incantation. It's a statement of who I am and who I'm becoming that I practice on a daily basis. And for me, one of them is bring it on. I am the forge of discipline, avoiding nothing and doggedly persistent. I am that I love pain, discomfort, and challenge as the raw material for my superhuman strength. You might wonder, is that true? And I might respond and say yes and no, on the level that sometimes that is what you would call a declaration of the aspirational sort, right? As in, I don't always love pain, discomfort, and challenge, though I do a lot more through that declaration, right? There's still the human survival part of me that's like, oh, that's uncomfortable. No, I want to move away from it. And I remember who I am and who I'm becoming, and I move toward it. So I think that's about the time to stop this piece of the conversation. I invite you to question, comment live or by rebroadcast. I invite you to inquire into what's uncomfortable for you. In fact, knowing that life exists on the other end of our discomfort, on the outside of our comfort zone, what would be a way for you today to become uncomfortable, to grow, to become more alive? And with that, thank you so much for tuning in. I love that you are interested in more vibrancy in your life. I love the opportunity I have had to be with you. Thank you. I love you.